Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Postman Live. I have a little bit of echo. Um, my name is Kevin, and I'm the technical community manager here at Postman. I've also got Debo here, and we've got a really fun stream planned for you this week. Debo, why don't you introduce yourself again?
Hi everyone, my name is Debo for full. I'm a developer relations engineer at Postman. I work out of the same team as Kevin, and it's really exciting to be here. I mean, it's always really nice having to come back on the streams and just,
Yeah, no, I
yeah.
I feel like we've done a number of streams together, and they've always been pretty fun and pretty technical. So that's, I guess, a
Yeah,
hint as to like what we're doing today. Um,
yeah,
Yeah, but actually, I mean, as like the community manager at Postman, I'm responsible for the Postman Supernova ambassador program. And I've been thinking of building a Slack community of sorts where we can all hang out and have discussions and stuff like that. However, I'd like to have some analytics for reporting and stuff like that. Um, and having been using Airtable a lot lately, I mean, that's what I use to plan these live streams for operations in the Supernova program. I use it a lot. Um, I was wondering like if I could connect Slack to that somehow using Postman. I've done things like that before where I built like a Twitch bot using Slack and Postman. So surely there's a way, and it seems like Debo's got the answer, right?
yeah, correct. And we're going to be going over how we can approach that today and breaking it into like simple steps and taking it one at a time and seeing how you can get data from Slack, get it into Postman, and from Postman, get it back into Airtable, and what you can do with that data itself.
That sounds awesome. I mean, thinking just in terms of like the analytics that I have to do for live streams, being able to do that's gonna help a lot. So like I can definitely see that I'll be
Yeah,
revisiting this in the future. Um, but yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I guess like before we get into that, it's time for the in case you missed it section of the live stream. Do you want to take it from here, Debo?
yeah, sure, absolutely.
I switched your
Yeah,
screen
so
on.
for in case you missed it, on our blog recently, we had Joyce published this blog post about 5 ways to enhance developer experience with Postman flows. So she talks about a couple of really interesting things, why you need to like write clear descriptions, how you can leverage formatting, and a couple of other stuff. So you should, if you're really interested in Postman flows, you should check out this blog. Then Pooja, who is a developer advocate at Postman, also wrote about the 5 essential API testing techniques. She talks about end-to-end testing, regression testing, integration testing, contract testing, and a couple of other ones. So if you're interested in testing and how you can enhance your testing techniques, it's not a long read, but it contains really valuable information. You should definitely check it out. And I and Pooja are also having an intergalactic session scheduled for August 23rd on testing and developing APIs with GraphQL. So here we'll be talking about GraphQL APIs, what it is. We'll explore how you can work with GraphQL schemas, what is GraphQL introspection, talk about mutations, queries, GraphQL subscriptions, and also talk about how you could test GraphQL APIs using using Postman's GraphQL clients. So we'll be walking you through how you can write and design robust tests, how you can write test scripts and whatnot. Uh, then next week we are having another live stream where Pooja, Deepa, and Damien are going to be walking you through the state of the API report and talking about the key insights. and just basically having a conversation around the state of the API reports and how you could like get the best out of like that information. And for context, the state of the API reports is an annual survey that Postman conducts. This year we had over 40,000 people fill that survey and talk about how they use APIs, what they use APIs for, how APIs has contributed value to their product, to their company at large. It just helps us understand APIs in ways in which we perhaps not been understanding it, because there's like a lot of data, a lot of people giving feedbacks about how they use like APIs. There's also like this really nice globe on the report that just shows a geographical distribution of where people are creating collections and APIs from in Postman, and Postman being like the largest API hub in the world. So you could just click anywhere on the map, and then you see how many collections have been created in that country, how many requests they've made. I'm from
That's
Nigeria,
really
so if
cool.
you're Nigeria, yeah. I could see how many collections are created. I could see that we've sent like 6.77 million requests in the
Mm.
past year. And I could also like go around on the globe just to check for other places around the world. Um, yeah, so it's a really cool way to represent how people are interacting with data or with API all around the world.
Yeah, and from what I understand, it's the largest API report, so it's gonna be a pretty
Yeah,
interesting stream.
this is the largest API report in the world. So yeah, there's a lot of rich and insightful data here.
Awesome. Yeah, so forgot to mention also we've got the chat, so thanks everyone for stopping by. I think got a pretty fun stream planned for you all. Feel free to drop in chat where you're from, introduce yourself, that kind of stuff. We actually are gonna need your help a little bit. We're gonna send you a link to join a Slack, and we'll need some help spamming it or sending messages so we don't break things. But yeah, um, let's get started then. So right. What we're planning to do, we want to build something that kind of feeds data from Slack into Airtable, say maybe like where people are from or message counts so that I can see like what kind of channels are most active. We can get that stuff into Airtable and then hopefully build some charts and stuff like that for reporting and kind of deciding like how to scale things, how to, do community management stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, where should we get started from here, Debo?
Well, I think one thing we could start with is defining like the kind of data we want to collect and the kind of
Right.
analytics we like to see in that data. So it might not be something extremely complex, just something super simple. Like
Okay.
Slack is a communication tool, right? People are sending messages
Yeah.
back and forth. What if we could have a way to collect some of these messages and then identify we sending the most message in a specific channel? I mean, that would be like something fun to do. So I think we could start from there where we have a Slack channel, and then when messages are being sent back and forth, we're able to identify who has sent the most messages and just sort of take all of this data into Postman, then from Postman into a table. So one good place to start would be to understand how Slack exposes that data to us, right? I mean, there should be a way to interface with
Yeah.
Slack. So Slack has an API documentation. I think it's at api.slack.com.
Yes, I'm
Um,
gonna
a good
nudge the
place to
chat off
start.
to the side. We can still see your messages. Feel free to ask us any questions, but switch to Debo's screen.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So a good place to start would be the Slack API documentation. They have a rich documentation here that shows how we can like do different things. But what we really want to like care, what we really care about today is their events API. So if we click the docs here, we should. I'm not sure why this is going away. I'm trying to over.
It
I
might be on the
this
left side. Oh, you got
yeah,
it.
it's the events API.
Yeah, so I imagine like we would subscribe to an event for say like messaging, and then that
Yep.
would, from what I recall building like a Twitch bot,
Mm-hmm.
monitors in Postman have a webhook, which essentially
Yep.
you can call and then trigger a collection run, and then
Mm-hmm.
somehow we would interact with Airtable that way.
Yeah, that is very correct. So the way Slack handles events is when an event occurs in Slack, there are different ways in which that event you can get that event either through a WebSocket where you have to establish an open connection, an end-to-end connection, and Slack emits events to that WebSocket, or you provide Slack with an HTTP endpoint. And when an event occurs, Slack sends a post request with the event as a request body to that HTTP endpoint itself, which is what we are going to be exploring today.
Okay.
And which is what we are going to be exploring today. So first off, we can see here that we can search for like different events that we want created. The events that we are really interested in are the messaging events. And we can see that there's a couple of them here that we could select and get started with. But the first thing we would need to do is to first have a way or an endpoint in which those events are sent to. That we can use a webhook in Postman to do that. And the Postman API provides a way for us to create webhooks in Postman where
Right.
the webhook can receive a request and we can use a call to that webhook to trigger a collection run, which is essentially what we are going to be starting with today. So today I'm just going to go over to learning.postman.com,
And,
which contains like, yeah,
sorry,
go
real
ahead,
quick, I
Kevin.
saw a question a couple times in chat. Is this session being recorded? Yes, it's all of our sessions, our intergalactics and live streams are available on YouTube. So I'll share this link.
Yeah.
So right now we're looking for how to
How
create
to
a
create a web.
right.
So I'm just going to do a search. Uh,
In creating a webhook that would then basically create a monitor then, right? Or
yeah,
okay.
I think I opened the wrong URL. Webhooks for a collection must be created using the Postman API. I was meant to click this one.
Oh,
Yeah, so
okay.
we have like the Postman documenter here. And I'm just going to copy this base URL, which is the base URL for the Postman API. And I'm going to create a new collection here. I call this Slack Analytics. I'm not sure where I got that name from. It's just a random idea that came to mind.
It's
But
I'm struggling to say it. I keep trying to say it in my head or pronounce it in my head. I'm just not gonna say it out loud.
yeah, just don't say it out loud. So yeah, I'm going to create a new request. I'll title this request create webhook. I'm just going to paste this webhook URL here. Um, Here, instead of displaying the code in Python, I'm going to display it in curl, because Postman has this very interesting feature where if you take a call request and you copy it and you paste that in your URL bar here, it's going to build that request for you and populate everything. So you could see that I have my query parameters here. I also have some part of my request body already populated, but I would want to edit this. So for this, I'd want it to be JSON.
It's such a helpful feature being able to just paste like a curl command in there and it does everything.
Yeah, it's really helpful. I mean, I use it all the time.
Yeah. I seems like not too many people know about it. I mean, admittedly, I was working at Postman for a good 6 months before I realized you could do that.
Yeah, I didn't realize you could do that until after. almost a year that I was at Postman. And I was like, oh wow, so this exists. It's really cool. So we are going to call this the Slack webbook. And then we'll need to provide our collection ID and our workspace ID. So for our collection ID, I'm just going to click my collection here. Then this info icon on the right sidebar. I can get my ID from here. And then I'll go back to my request and just modify this pseudo ID. Then in my parameters here, I have my workspace ID. Similarly to what I did for collections, I'll click on the name of the workspace, just get my ID out of there. Then I could modify this with my workspace ID, then save. And when I hit send, I expect this to fail because I am not providing an API key for
I'm gonna
this
say,
to
I
work.
wonder if that'll work. I think we need a key.
Yeah, we need a key. So to
I
create
think
an
we can.
API key, I'll click on my icon here, go to settings.
I'm learning how to do this too because I always forget how to navigate to it.
Yeah. Then we have API keys here. So I already have one created. I'll just regenerate this API key. Then copy it to clipboard. Then I'll have to head back to my collection. And
Right. So
authorizations. Select the API key. Then this would be X API, I think, key. And for the value, I'm going to set this as a variable. And if I make this request, I should get a successful response. Oh, so now it's saying workspace not found. I'm guessing that means I got the wrong workspace ID.
I forget, did we put the ID in the body or was it in the parameter? It looks the
Sorry, can you come
same.
again?
I don't know.
Yeah,
It,
it's the
it
same.
looks like it's the same ID.
Yeah, it's the same ID. And it says workspace not found, which is interesting because
Can
it's
we double check the
this.
documentation? Does it maybe need to be public? I can't imagine why it would have to be public though.
Yeah.
Oh,
And the
export
workspace
the
is,
headers real quick.
sorry, can you come
Sorry,
again?
back under your headers tab.
Okay.
That ID is different.
Yes.
Like the value
So I'm
for
going
it.
to toggle. Yeah, I'll
Okay,
toggle this one off. So it uses this params here. Let me
that
save
should
this.
work. I hope.
Yeah,
There we
yeah,
go.
it works now.
We figured that out quick.
Yes. Yeah. So now we have a webbook that has been created. And in Postman, webbooks are essentially monitors. And monitors are a way for you to run your collections um, on a schedule. So if you have like collections with tests and pull request scripts written, you could create a monitor to monitor your collection and monitor the health of your collection, where you know how many tests are failing, how many tests are passing. You get email notification when certain tests are failing. You get email notifications when those tests are passing. You could also set things like how long you want it to take before you get a response
Right.
from an API request. If it exceeds that threshold, you get notified. So monitors are essentially a way to monitor your collection. And
Okay, so I can
when you
see in the
create a web,
response. Oh, go ahead. You got
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, and when you create a webbook, essentially it creates a monitor. So here in this monitor, you can see that a Slack webbook has been created, which is the name I gave to this webbook here. Um, so here, if I come to this monitor, One way to run this monitor is to click the run button here. But another way to run this monitor is to make a request, make a post request to my webhook, to this webhook URL here. Then I could make a post request. I could
And that's the
give it
URL that
some.
we got in that response from creating it.
Yeah, that's correct. I could give it a name. Let me make that my name. Let me save this. Then when I send this, I get some response back from the webhook. And when I go back to my monitor, I could see that it's currently running.
Making a lot of monitors.
Yeah.
I think because it's triggering the collection, which I think we should. How do we stop this? It's gonna hopefully time out because it's running the collection.
Yeah, it's
Which
running the collection.
yeah,
Oh,
we have a little
yeah.
bit of an echo, but it's running the collection, which creates a webhook, which
It
then
creates a new
triggers the
monitor.
leg.
Yeah, you're correct. So I should cancel this. Let's see.
I think you might be able to
Is it still
pause it.
creating?
Yeah, it's still going.
Let, yeah, let me
There you
delete
go.
this. Or let me pause it instead.
Okay,
Okay,
let's
yeah,
see.
so it has stopped now. So the reason why that happened was because this collection creates a webhook. So it just keeps creating a webhook and webhook keeps calling itself and then it just keeps making a request. So it's more like would I say recursion, where the request is calling itself. But ideally, a good way to avoid this would be um, one, I could have a request at the top here. I could just call this request setup, and you'd see why I'm doing this later on the stream. And I could make a request to Postman Echo service. Just give this some random parameter. And I'd save this. Then in the test script, I could do something like postman.set next request to null. So when this collection run is triggered, after this request is run, I'm saying don't run any additional request. Similarly to how I set it to null, I could also set it to specify the request I want to run. So if I trigger this webhook, the same thing that happened previously should not happen again. I think I'll have to create a new webhook. Let me
I
delete
think
the
because it's
bold one.
paused. Also,
Yeah,
could
it's
you
paused.
adjust your speaker volume a little bit? There's some echo.
Okay, is it better now?
Uh, yes. No. No.
Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to create a new webhook and use that instead. So this only run once, which is what we expect. And if we had tests, we would be seeing some of the tests there. But essentially, because I told it to stop at this request, it's not running any additional request after it has run this. So now that we have our webhook URL, we can go back to Slack. I have a Slack Analytics app, but I already had this one set up, so I'm just going to create a new app for the stream. I could name the Slack Analytics 2. And use my first workspace here and click on create app. I just realized I spelled that wrongly, but that's fine as well. So what I want to set up here is event subscriptions. Then I first want to enable events, then post my webhook URL here. When I post my webhook URL here, the first thing Slack tries to do is to verify that that URL is correct and that that URL is controlled by me. And the way it does that is, since it's a post endpoint, it sends me a code challenge that it expects me to respond with immediately, um, so that I can verify that that specific endpoint or that specific server is controlled by me. But now it's sending a post request to this endpoint, but the endpoint is not responding with that code challenge or the verification challenge that Slack sends to me. And
Yeah,
that
we
is
just see
because
okay when
web,
we do that.
yeah, we just see okay when we do that, similarly to the response we got here. And the reason why that is the case is because webhooks in Postman are designed to help you trigger a collection run using a monitor, right? They are not meant for you to define an interface for a response that is going to be returned when you make a request to that webhook. So now we have a workaround for this, right? Because usually when people are working with Slack APIs and they want to subscribe to like the events, Slack events using this URL in Postman, this is where they get stuck. So we have a workaround for this. What we've done is we've built a very mini proxy server. I'm going to be sharing. Let me bring that on my screen. We built a very mini proxy server, and this only has just one single file, and it's about, I think it's about 57 lines of code. And essentially what this does is it does two things. The first thing it does is it exposes an endpoint, a route, that listens to events from Slack. And when it gets an event from Slack, um, if it's a URL verification event, it knows that Slack is trying to check for the authenticity of that of that particular endpoint, and it immediately responds with the code challenge. Otherwise, it knows that Slack is emitting an actual event to this particular server, and it takes that event, it gets the request header, the request body, and the request parameters, and it forwards it to our webhook here. So this is essentially what it does. It helps you verify the endpoints, and then it routes all events that are coming into that endpoint back to Postman webhook. So in order to make this work, we have to provide the webhook URL as an environment variable. Going to copy the webhook URL here,
Right. So
and
instead of
yes,
giving Slack the URL, um, we give it this URL and then this sends it to Postman.
yes, that is correct. So you give Slack this URL, and Slack is able to verify this URL, and then you send this sends all events coming to it back into Postman. So now that I have this set up,
Like internet issues. But yeah, this will make this helpful because otherwise we wouldn't be able to really connect the two. Um, see if Debo gets back. But otherwise, yeah, if anyone has any questions about this process, I believe there's also a GitHub repository that we can share. Try to find that link. No echo now, yeah. Um, I'll see if we can lower the volume. I think he's a Blue Yeti, and those are notoriously sensitive. So this is the GitHub repository that we can use. Just us. It's you and me. Um, okay. Yeah, I've posted the repo in chat. I'm trying to think what I can talk about. So one question, why not JavaScript and TypeScript? I mean, you could technically do it in any language you want as long as you can make like a web server or something like that, but we opted for JavaScript just because it was pretty quick and it's familiar for people using Postman since all of our tests are already done in JavaScript. But yeah, I mean otherwise you could generate things in Python or whatever. It's meant to be a very simple application that you could throw up on some web service to really just echo the verification challenge to Slack. Otherwise it would just I believe trigger the monitor, but we wouldn't get any we're getting some controversial questions. It wouldn't we wouldn't be able to get any of the data really essentially. Like it'll hit it with the verification challenge. The monitor would run, but since we're not responding to it, we're not getting any data. That's good for like if you're trying to run a command or something like that, which I've done in the past, but it's hard to do anything with that. IntelliJ versus VS Code, I don't know. I used to use both. I feel like VS Code's a lot lighter weight, so that kind of it's they have their different uses. It looks like Debo's back.
Tables back.
Hey, could you turn your
Yeah.
speaker volume down a
Can
little
you
bit?
speak
Actually,
a little bit, actually?
let's see if that's better. There's some pretty nasty echo. We may have lost him again. But yeah, I'm not versed in it enough to give a authoritative opinion on IntelliJ versus VS Code. I know some people swear by each of them, but they're pretty good. Um, yeah, I mean, let's see how we can try to move this along a little more. So I can share my screen and talk a little bit about what we're doing. Okay, gonna move chat really quick. Right. So we have a workspace that we're using as like reference while we build this. Obviously, we want to show you how to build this because that's more entertaining. But oh no, this is the other workspace. I have to find the correct one. I don't think I was added to that. So we'll talk through this then real quick. We'll summarize what we're doing. Um, so this is creating a webhook. We found this from like the Postman API page. Um, I saw a question about the workspace ID. So this we can gather from this part. Zoom in a little bit more. When you go to the home page of your workspace, there's this icon up here where you can grab the workspace ID, and then that's what we're putting in the parameter for the workspace. Um, and then also in the body, since we're making a monitor runs a collection. So we have to provide like a collection ID, which in this case is here. We go to this I, and then we just kind of it's the same thing. I don't know why I'm doing this, but when we run this, it'll create a monitor. That's a monitor, which I think was this first one. But the problem is that when we're running a collection, it's going to run all of the requests in that collection. So I don't think we can should be able to edit it. It'll run all of the requests in this collection, which basically means it's just going to loop. So that's why we were seeing it run um, over and over and over again. So with this, we did the test script to set the next request to null, which basically just breaks it, and then it can't keep re-looping. But that's about that. That's the summary. See if we have anything new in chat. Hopefully Debo gets back soon. Otherwise, we may have to reschedule because I don't have the material for this. But I'm curious, like, what kind of things have people made with Postman like this? I've come up with some interesting ideas, like a Twitch Slack bot, and lately trying to get like live stream data into Airtable. Looks like we got Debo back. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, just in time. I've run out of stuff to say.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry
You're
about
fine.
that. Like, I'm so sorry about that. I'm having a bit of technical issues here, but it's all resolved now.
It seems like the echo's gone, so that's better.
Yeah, yeah. So where was I think I was
So we were just talking through
about
the sorry, we were just talking through the proxy, or I forget the term we would use, but the VS Code application to kind of echo the requests.
okay. Okay, so can you bring my screen back up?
Yeah, can you share it again real quick? I'm not seeing it here.
Okay. Can you see it now?
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, awesome. So I was just about to start this proxy server before. But now that I have this server running, it's running on localhost 3000, but I can't put localhost into Slack, right? So what I did is I'm using ngrok to HTTP forward my localhost to the web. And to do that, I just have to do ngrok HTTP the port 3000. Then ngrok gives me an actual URL that I can make use of, and I can copy this URL, and then I can now use this URL within Slack.
Right.
So I could click on, instead of retrying this, I would paste this URL. I need to be slack/events, if I'm not wrong. Then I think I have to reload this page. I'm trying to confirm the route /slack/events. Okay, please use HTTPS. So Slack/events. Let me reload this entire page. I'm not sure why the verification is not going through. I need to enable events when I paste this.
Mhm.
Oh, there's a space right in front of the
Oh,
URL.
I would have never caught that. I'm like, there's an S.
Yes, so now it's verified
There we go.
because it sends the code challenge and it responded with the code challenge. Now the code for this proxy server is hosted on GitHub. Kevin can help share a link to that in the comment section.
Sure.
But you see that here I'm logging that I have a new event, and it's a URL verification event. Then Slack did send the challenge that I responded with back. So now that URL is verified, it means that Slack will send any events that I have for a new any new events to this particular URL, and this URL is going to forward it to my webhook. So now we can test that out by installing this app in a Slack workspace. So what I do is
So this is just subscribing to the message event, and it's going to send that
yeah, so I
essentially
just
to
have
Postman every time a message is sent.
yeah. So now I have the events that I want to subscribe to. I want to know when a message is sent to a channel, essentially. Um, so I could check for channel. Looking for the right event.
It might just be message. Because I
Yeah,
was
let's check
seeing
for
one
message.
was like message to a specific channel, but I think we just want any message, right?
Yeah, I think we want message to a specific
Because that would be
message
direct
channel.
message.
Yeah, I think that one. Then let's see if there's any other one. a message to a private channel. A message
I
was
think that
posted
one,
to a
yeah.
channel. That one. And which other one? Multi-party direct message channel. I mean, I could select this one too. Um, so I could save changes. Now that I have that saved, I have to actually install the application to a workspace. So I'd click install to workspace. Then I would allow. I haven't actually selected a workspace. But yeah, it's giving me a user OAuth token. I can copy this and let's see. I'm not sure. Have I actually selected a workspace? I'm not sure I
I
have.
think it's based on your account.
Yeah, I mean, there's only one way to find out. Let's test this out in
Yeah.
Slack and see. So I have this test workspace that I have created, and I have the general channel here. Let me send hello to this channel. Oh yeah, it actually works.
Okay.
So one thing that is happening here is I sent that channel, I sent that message, and you can see that a message to that channel, and you can see that almost immediately I get a Slack event here. I could see that I sent hello, and the message text reads hello here. I could also see that that message got sent to Postman, which is why I'm getting this OK response as data for Postman. Now, if I go back to my monitor and I click here, I'll see that this was the last request that was sent exactly 1 minute ago. And I can see that this is actually working fine. So now I need to figure out what to do with this request, right? I can go back to my collection. I know that once that request is coming in, it comes to this collection and makes this request to the Echo API service. But I need to get the events from that request. I need to get like the request body, for example, which is where the events are going to live. Um, so to do that, um, in your scripts tab, there's I could create a variable called const previous request. I could just name this request. This globals.previous request is where Postman stores the data for that was sent to that specific webhook. So if this collection is being run from a webhook, Postman is going to store all the data relating to that webhook, especially the request body in globals.previous request. And this global.previous request is a string, so I'll need to pass it as JSON. Then I can get the actual request data here. So I could just do request dot data here. And I could log this to the console just to be sure that it's working as expected. I could just do this.
So then this is getting the data from what triggered the webhook?
Yes, this is the data
Okay.
from what triggered the webhook. So this is the request body that was sent to the webhook. So I'm just
Right.
logging that here just to confirm that it works. So now all I just need to do is to send a new message here. And then I can confirm that the message got here. I can also confirm that it has gotten to my webhook. Then when I go to my monitor, a test is failing. I'm not sure why it's failing, but we'll find out. I'll check the console. And it's telling me identifier request has
Oh,
already been
because it's a
declared.
yeah. We need a unique name.
Okay. Let me change this to previous request. And let me try running this again. Hello. Okay, now this one passes. Now I can see that my events are being logged to Postman here in my monitor. And now I could now take this data and do certain things with this data. So now we're going to do two things with this data, right? We want to be able to send this data into Airtable in an organized manner so we can keep it organized and just present it in a way in which we get the most analytics out of it. So the first thing we are going to do is one, we need a request that enables us add data to Airtable. But before we do that, we need to extract all of the things we need from this data, right? We need to know what channel the message was posted to.
Yeah, I think
We
we would
also
want to
need to
have
know
data on that. The channel, the
yeah,
author, maybe like the timestamp, if we can see like
yes,
where the person's from. Any of that stuff that we
yes,
can kind of use for like metrics. What
yes,
what what do we have in this like response here? Because I could see like there were a bunch of IDs and stuff like that. Um,
yes. So in
the
the
team
response here, we
ID,
have the user ID, we have the
right?
channel ID, we also have timestamp,
Okay,
and we have the message itself. We have the team ID. I'm not sure this is very relevant, but for now, let's just stick to the channel ID, the user ID, and the message itself, then the timestamp.
okay.
So we can just like log all of this. So I'm not sure I still need this, but I could keep it here, but I'm just going to delete that. So now what we really need is, we can see that we have an events object here, and then we have the timestamp. So we could destructure that out of our requests. And I can construct a new object. I could call this the message object 3. And I can collect relevant information about or for now, I think all I just need is the channel ID.
Right.
So I could do events dot channel, I think. Then I also need the user ID. And the message itself. The timestamp. Actually, events time. I could store all of this in a collection variable. And one thing that would be helpful to do here is to use the scripts on the right side here. We could just click set a collection variable, and that just helps us conveniently set a collection variable. So I could store this as a collection variable. Oh no, I'm just going to duplicate this. 4 places for the user
So this will
ID.
allow us to use it in like our next request where we're sending it to Airtable.
Yes, that's correct. Then message and the timestamp. So yeah, I'm just basically copying and pasting all of this data here.
Okay.
And one last thing that we could do is to verify that we are actually getting a response code of 200. Yeah.
And is this something that we could, I don't know if automate is the right word, but do with Postbot?
Uh, well, we could generate this entire test script with Postbot.
Right.
That's something that we could do. We could just tell Postbot to, although I have already written this, let me just copy all of this to my clipboard. But with Postbot, if we don't want to like write all of the scripts, we could say save the channel. Or let me just do something super simple. I'll do something much more complex later on. Check if the status code is 200 and I hit send. Now Postbot sort of gives me a good starting point where it is not only checking that the status code is 200, but also checking it has a content type. And here it's checking if a property is present.
Right.
Then it's also checking if the response time is less than 200 milliseconds. Then it's
Oh,
checking
it's
if the
checking all
channel
the
ID is
properties.
present. It's checking if the user ID is present. It's checking if the timestamp is present. Oh, that's
Huh.
interesting. So I asked it to check for the status code and it's checking all other things that might be useful to me. So it's sort of like suggesting other tests aside from the one I asked it to generate that might be useful to me, and then I can choose to keep
Right.
whichever one is most relevant. Yeah, really nice. But I'm just going to revert back to what I had before. Um, then I'm going to save this. So now one thing I want to do is we have the channel ID, but we need the channel information. So we need to make another request to Slack to get the information about this channel using its ID. And I'm going to head back to Slack's documentation now. You can get started. So aside from the documentation for events, they have a documentation for, I think it's called methods. I'm trying to find that. Messaging, authentication, interactivity. Let's check APIs. So we have the web API, we have the events API. So I'm interested in the web API. Yeah. Yeah, so here, what I want is get the channels info, but it seems this one is duplicated. But let's see.
This is
Oh,
trying to
now it's
get like the
conversation.
channel name.
Yeah, just to get like the channel name.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be more
So this is
helpful
just,
than just seeing an ID.
yeah, it will be more helpful than just saying an ID. So here we have to send a GET request to this endpoint. Then I'm just going to copy this endpoint URL, come back to Postman. I'll create a new request. And paste this endpoint here. Let me save this to our collection and name this get channel name. And I'll save this. Let me move this up. So it runs immediately after the setup request. Then this base URL, I think it would be good. It would be a good idea to store this in a collection variable since we might have a need to reuse it.
Yeah, the base URL.
Yes. Set as variable. And back to the documentation, it says I need this required scopes. So I'm using the user tokens, so I need channels read, groups read, IAM read. So I need all of the scopes. Then I'm just going to open my app in a new tab and enable all of those scopes. So where is scopes? I think OAuth and permissions. I need to add new scopes. I have channels read, group read, and IAM read.
Right.
So channel read, group read, read. Then the last one is IAM read. Then there's MP IAM read. Why do I need this much scopes?
I mean, I guess it's more secure that way.
Yeah, I guess it's more secure that way. So I have the necessary scopes that are needed. And now for the arguments, bearer token scopes token should be. So I need to provide a bearer token and the channel as a query parameter. So here I can provide the channel ID, but because I want to test this request first, I can just get this channel ID from here and use that. But ultimately, I want this to be getting this from a collection variable. Then here we'll be using a bearer token, and I can get my token from here. I can just paste this here, set it as a variable. Make that a collection variable. Then let me save and hit send. Oh, so it says the scopes are missing. I think that is because I need to
Okay.
reinstall
Yeah.
the app since I'm requesting new scopes. Okay, so let me try this once again. Okay, now
There
it
we
works.
go.
Um,
Relief.
no, I just, yeah, yeah, go for it.
No, I was saying it's a relief.
Yeah, it's a relief. So I can see that all I need here is just the name of the channel. I really do not, I mean, you could have the purpose of the channel as well, but for the sake of time, I'll just like stick with the name of the channel. So for here, for the params here, I don't want this to be hard coded. I want this to be the channel name.
Or channel ID, since we're passing the ID.
Oh yeah, channel ID. Yeah, that's a good catch. Let me paste this ID here. So here, just to be sure that this is working, I just want to log the response I'm getting. So I could just click on any random one here. I'm just going to copy this with everything else here. This has to be the JSON. Yeah, I could have used Postbot for this, really. That would have saved me a lot of time.
Yeah. Been trying to remind
But now
myself
I'm
to
just
use
going
it more.
I'm going to send a new message here. And I can see that that message was sent. It has forwarded it to the monitor. I can come here. Oh, it was a success. And then check the logs. But there's no log here, which means it didn't get to this request. And that's because I'm setting this to null here. So now I want to remove that and set it to null here, since I don't want it to create a new webhook, which is the request that precedes this one.
What
Send a
if
new
we put
message.
the requests in like another collection in this workspace, like a setup collection or something like that, and then we wouldn't need that set null. I mean, we could leave it, but I think that would be another like
Can you,
workaround.
yeah, can you come again with the workaround?
Sorry, say again.
Sorry, what was the workaround?
So instead of setting next request to null, to stop the creating webhook thing, that's used just for setup. We could technically put that in its own collection called like setup or something like that.
Yeah, that could be another workaround instead of having to like do this every
Yeah.
time. Yeah, that's a great idea actually. Should I create? Oh no,
But it
just
is
instead of
still
creating
also
a
a
new
good
collection.
demonstration of like chaining requests because null means that it's not going to run another request, but we could specifically select which requests we want it to run. So, I mean, like how we
Yes,
removed null there, we could set the next request to the get channel name, I forget what it was called, or the channel the collection ID of it even. Um,
yes.
but yeah.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, you could just provide the name of the next request you want it to run, and it is going to skip every other request after it and specifically run just that request. And then from the new request you run, you can specify what request you want it to run after. So you can sort of just create a workflow for yourself and chain requests that way.
Because
Yeah.
otherwise, it's just running sequentially the way it appears within like the collection.
Yep. Yeah, that's correct. So here we can see that the log for the channel response is now here. So what we want to do now is to save the channel name into an environment variable or into a collection variable. So I'm going to come to the test script. And I could just say const channel name would be equal to response dot channel, nope, dot name. And I could save this as, sorry, this was supposed to be PM dot set channel name to be channel name.
And all of this is just going to make it easier to send their requests. That's just
Yeah,
putting all this data in Airtable.
yeah. So similarly to what we do for channel name, we want to do the same thing for getting a user info. So I'm going to come here and I'll do user.info, I think. Well, it isn't user. I think it's users.info. Yeah, it's users.info. So I could just copy this and use the Slack base URL. And here it says I need users.read. So I have to go back to auth and permissions. And I have to add users read. now I have to reinstall my app. Okay, so now that it's reinstalled, I also need to provide my authentication token and the user ID as a query parameter. Let me see if this is workspace. Let me rename this to get user. User. The same way I did for channels, I could get the user ID from here and just use that to paste for now. Then I could do bearer token. Already has that. Let me save and send this. Okay, so now this works. Then for my test scripts, I could just use postbots. Save the user's name as a collection variable. Instead of having to write that myself, postbot automatically does that for me,
Nice.
which is really cool, by the way.
Saves so much time.
Then yeah, it saves so much time. Then so this doesn't prevent us from doing that again. I'll just bring it down here. Yeah, I think the collection idea is a lot better than having to like copy and paste this every now and
Yeah.
then, because then you could easily forget to like
It makes more sense to have
copy
it in
and
like a
paste this.
setup collection or something, but it's not too big of a deal right
Yeah,
now. We are a little short
yeah,
on time anyway.
yeah, sure. So let me log this to the console just to be sure it's working up to this point. And let me trigger the collection run. Come to monitors, and it's really fast. I mean, it gets here almost immediately. Even though it's going through like a proxy,
Yeah,
it's still very
pretty
fast.
quick.
Yeah, and it logged my name,
Nice. Okay.
Debo.Baylor.
So now
Yeah.
how do we start getting this stuff into Airtable?
Yeah, so that's how what we are going to do next now. Just remove all of this redundant consoles. So now we need a new request that sends this to Airtable, and we need a new request that sends this to Airtable. So I'm going to create a new request here. And then we need Airtable's API. So I already set up an Airtable case that we could use for this demo. Let me pull that here. This, how do I get this out of my screen? Yep. So this has, I don't think we're collecting SIMs. I'm just going to delete this. Oh no, I can't delete it. Let me reload.
I think we could leave it, right? It's just the fields that we're sending things into. You might have
Yeah,
to change what the primary key is so that you can remove team if we're not passing that. Maybe message ID or something like that would make sense.
yeah. I could just update this to ID and
Yeah,
then
because
make
I
it,
believe that has to be something unique unless Airtable doesn't care about that.
yeah. Let me just make this a number and save. So we have message, we have user, we have channel, and we have the date it was created. But for the Airtable API documentation, they have a reference API. So the one I really care about is this one, this workspace that I have set up. So I want to add items to Airtable. And how do I go about that? Okay, so this is my task table, which is essentially this table that I have here. It's called tasks. And I like the way Airtable documentation is sort of personalized to the different Airtable bases that you have. It's really cool.
Right.
Yeah, so they do have a call request that I can copy and paste, which is sweet. I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. And it already populates like the ID of my Airtable base and whatnot. And I just need to update this to post. And then I need to provide my credentials, I think. I think Airtable also uses bearer token. So I already have my Airtable token generated before the stream. So I'm just going to copy and paste that here. And I'll save this as, oh no, why can I only save this as a global variable? Because I haven't saved the request.
Ah.
Oh, okay. So now I should be able to put this as a variable, then I save this, then I hit send. Oh, nothing is going to happen because I do not have a request body and I'm trying to add data. So this should be JSON, and then let's check what the structure of the request body should look like. Let's see. No,
Update
not
and upstart
JavaScript.
or create
Yeah,
records.
yeah. So it should have, where is it?
It's on the left side under tasks table. There's create records.
Oh, yeah, that's the one I was looking for. And there should be a JSON that I could copy and paste.
Check out the JavaScript tab.
They've got my thing. Okay, so if I remember correctly, I think this should be, I'm just relying on my very faint memory. I'm not sure. I think this should take in an array of records and then should be an array of JavaScript, array of JSON, and then I can specify the fields. Yeah, I think this should be correct. I just wanted to be like double sure.
Oh, if you want to share, I'll post a link in our private chat just so that we could see the API reference.
Yeah. And could you also, okay, yeah, not yet. So for the fields, it's going to be all of these fields that we have in the Airtable base, which is message, user, channel, and created. And all of these are capitalized. I'm not sure why I made them capitalized. But you could have message, user, Kevin. Then what else do we have? Channel and created. So we could have channel, general, created. This should be a timestamp. Let's just see 08, 08, 2023. Okay, so let me send this and see. Okay, yeah, now it has added records to the Airtable base. So if I come here,
Oh,
I
cool.
can see that this has an ID of 1. I can see like the records it's created, and it also has like the timestamp aside from like the dates that I included. So cool. So now we want this to happen automatically. We don't want to manually do this. So one thing that we could do is in the pre-request script, we could prepare the request body and store it as a variable, because the pre-request script runs immediately before the request is
Right.
made, and anything in the test script runs immediately after the request is made. So in the pre-request script, you could sort of modify what you want to be included in the request body before that request is made. And in the test script, you could perform specific action or write tests on the response you've gotten from your API request. So in the pre-request script, I want to get all of the variables
Well,
that
so
we've been
since we're short
storing.
on time, could we copy paste from the reference and then we'll talk through what we did there? Just so that we could kind of speed it along a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, the thing is, the reference is sort of different from
That's
this
fine.
one.
Yeah, we could do it this way then.
Yes, copy exactly. Where's the Airtable one? Here. So let me just do this really fast. This is the channel name.
Okay, so we're trying to
Because
grab
we're
all
short
of
on
that data
time.
that we have from that Slack request and turn it into something that we can use for adding it to the Airtable. And then from there, we can build charts right in Airtable pretty easily.
Yep. I'm just going to,
And then we're doing this in the
yeah.
pre-request script because this will execute, Postman will execute this code prior to the request itself actually being sent. So we can populate all of the stuff in the body that goes with the request beforehand. And then that'll give us what we need basically. And then not that
Yeah.
we would do this right now, but I wonder like if we could have passed like the data object instead of creating like all these different variables.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that we would do it now, but that could also save a little bit of time. But then the data object would be a little bit bigger, and we're getting everything.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, that would have been very helpful. Um, so to construct the message object, I'm just going to copy the request body from here and put it here. And now I'm going to take everything we have in fields here. So message would now reference message, then user reference user's name, channel reference
Could we have also put
channel.
it in brackets in the body, like curly
Yeah, would
brackets,
have to do
and
that.
right?
I have to set this as a collection variable. Let's set I could name this a variable message and store this as a string. Uh,
And there's just a typo in JSON down there.
oh yeah, that's a good catch. Now that slow us down. Then this
Yeah.
collection variable that we're storing here, um, in the request body, we could use it directly and save. So now I hope this works.
So
But
would
one
we have
last
been able
thing
to
is
technically do
to,
that without all of that stuff in the pre-request script since the other variables are already variables?
no, we wouldn't, because you can't use variables in between JSON and the request body. It's either you use a JSON or you use
Right.
a variable directly, but you
Okay.
can't use variables within the JSON. Yeah, so we won't be able to do that. So now I'm just hoping that this works. Hey everyone, then the monitor is currently running. No errors, that's a good sign.
A good sign.
Added to Airtable. Okay, it added everything
Nice.
else except for the message.
Yeah, I don't think we set that one yet in the actual that previous request.
We didn't.
In the one before it, I
Message.
think, in under setup. Because I think we're getting it, but are we actually setting it anywhere? Oh, we are.
Yeah, we are collections,
Right.
message, event with message, message, event with message.
What about
Collection
the
variable.
what does the response look like? Did we get the right property?
Let me log that here.
That could be wrong. It
Let
might
me
be like the
send.
wrong path or something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be something very minor. Message is null.
Right.
Oh,
What
might
about
be like the
inside
wrong
your
path.
proxy? What does it look like?
So events.message here is events. It should be events.text.
There we
I
go.
see.
Okay.
So I think now would be a good time to share a link to the Slack channel and perhaps how people send messages in real time.
Right. So this is where we're gonna
Yes,
need chat's help. Making sure I'm sending the right link. Join this Slack and send some messages. We have a channel called Introductions, so you could introduce yourself. You could spam. Uh, keep it professional, and we'll see some data show up in the Airtable. I'm gonna help out so that we can move this along too. So I'm gonna send some
yeah.
stuff, maybe in like a new channel, like random. Hey,
Mhm.
saying a lot of
So
haze.
feel free to spam the channel as much as you want.
So you can see we
I'm
got a new
just going
message
to,
in the random channel, so that works. What
oh
if
wow.
I message the Slack bot? I can't send messages to it. Does it pick up? I don't think we should demonstrate sending DMs and catching that, but
Yeah.
right.
So
So
people join the Slack channel, send as much messages as you can, introduce yourself. I mean, would see the messages pop up here in real time.
the only thing is it's saying all of the messages are coming in as you.
Yeah, that's not supposed to happen.
I just noticed that.
Yeah, I just noticed that too. So it means the
Is it
user
because
here is the user who created the channel. Ah,
well, wouldn't that be the author? Is that the same one every time?
yeah, it looks like it's the same one every time. So all the messages are coming in as me,
Is it
and
saying like type text user? So it would imply that it's like the author since it's part of
yeah.
like the message object.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because it's is that hard coded there?
It's not hard coded. I'm getting the user ID and using the user's ID to get the user's name. So it's not hard coded.
But in the parameter there, it was showing like a specific ID instead of a variable.
Yeah.
Yeah, under that one.
You mean here?
No, no, see in the parameter, sorry, the request URL under get users.
The request URL? Yeah.
No, no, the under your collection get users, that request URL is using a
Yeah.
hard-coded parameter. We need to use the username
Oh,
variable
right,
there.
right. Yeah, that's a good catch actually.
Hopefully that works because that looks like it's just your ID.
Yeah. Where am I storing the user's name? I'm storing it as
I think it was, yeah, camel case.
yeah.
Okay. I'll send another message.
Wait, it won't work just yet. Just a minute. Yeah, it should work now.
Okay.
Send another message. Oh, now it doesn't have a name. Try
Okay, no, it
again.
works.
Oh
It
yeah, now
works.
it
I
does.
just did it too early. Okay. We're good.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, we're good.
let's say we build a chart or something really quick because we're kind of out of time.
Yeah, so instead of like doing it in Airtable, I'm thinking I could just make a request to get all those records in Postman and build a chat with Postbot, or we could do it in Airtable too. Either ways, it's fine.
Right.
For this one, I'm just copying. uh, oh, this one is using Slack token. Get Airtable records. So it should use Airtable's token. Okay. I'm not sure why this is not working.
Is it the
Bearer
correct
token.
request path?
I should do what?
Looks like it.
Let me check the console. Unexpected token. What's that?
Is it maybe something in the header? Because we're getting an HTML response instead of JSON,
Yeah.
like the
So the
accept type.
authorization, we're getting the token. Air token. I think instead of, I mean, it should be the same.
Oh, sorry, I meant like the accept for, I forget what it's called, application JSON. Because we're getting HTML
That's,
responses.
oh, I'm getting a 404 not found.
Right.
So the base URL, this is using the Slack base URL.
That's Slacks.
That's the issue.
Okay.
Yeah. It shouldn't be using the Slack space URL.
Yeah. There we go.
Oh yeah, now we are actually getting the records back. So we could just go into postbots and see. Um, let me check the records here. Which user has the most messages? And let me send this. I hope this works.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
Visualizer, I see
generating a
visualizer.
visualization. Yeah. And when I click visualize,
That is so
okay,
cool. Okay, that's accurate because there's only one by
yeah,
me.
that's accurate.
Or no,
Yeah,
there's two. Yeah.
2 messages by you and 5 messages by me.
That is
Could you
so
try
cool.
sending
Not
a couple of more messages?
Yeah, let's try it. We may have to rerun it, but
Yeah,
okay, I'm totally winning now.
okay. So let's do this again.
I'm
Oh, now it has
almost there.
increased
I
to
don't think
4.
it's finished running yet.
Yeah, but yours has increased to 4 here. So there's 2 more messages for you.
Try to run it again. I've totally caught up.
Oh no, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, it's fine. It has increased. Yeah.
It's working at least, yeah. That is so cool though. I mean, not to say I'm surprised,
Yeah.
but like we did that in 2 seconds. We were just like, I want to see who sends the most messages, and it did it. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it ran the request. It made sense of the response, and it presented it
Yeah.
in a bar chart. I didn't even have to tell it a bar chart. It just figured out that that was the most appropriate way to
Let's
represent the data.
let's take a look at the code that
Uh,
it generated
what if I
actually.
specify that? Yeah. I mean, what if I specify that I should do it in a table?
Okay.
Okay. And send. Oh wow.
So it's just showing the messages, but
But now it's not showing me who has the most messages. Yes.
I think it just confused what parameter we were looking for.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
like the number of messages.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I think we're out of time now, so we
Yeah.
should be wrapping up. But this was a good stream, and hopefully we hope we've been able to show you how you could take events from Slack and use it to build something useful in Postman by taking advantage of this very tiny little proxy server that we were able to set up. Would include a link to the proxy server and a link to this collection right here in the description of the live stream when it's published. But I think Kevin has also posted a link to that repository, so you could check out the code, contribute to it. But ultimately, we're able to not just get events into Postman, but we're able to take all of those data and put it back into Airtable. And Airtable is such a great tool for organization. There's a lot you could do with data that you have represented in Airtable. So from there, there's a lot of other things that could come out of that data just sitting in Airtable alone. So yeah, we've been able to show that you could integrate Postman with other APIs and just get to build something meaningful out of it without having to perhaps spin up a complex Node.js server or manage databases of your own and whatnot.
Yeah, that was
So yeah,
really
I
great.
think it's been a very yeah.
Thanks so much for helping out with that. I mean, we accomplished a lot. We connected Slack through, I mean, we had to build a whole proxy. You built a proxy to kind of echo that into
Yeah,
Postman and then run all these requests, get that stuff into Airtable, and then we built a chart like in 2 seconds. That was awesome. But yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, that was awesome.
that was awesome. So I guess yeah, we'll have links to this stuff in the description of the video if you're watching afterwards. If you're watching now, we're at
Mhm.
youtube.com/postman. Um, yeah, I guess like, do you have any
Mhm.
shout outs you have before we wrap it up?
I think well, shout out to everyone who joined the streams today because we do these streams like very often and having like people come around just hear what we have to say get to learn from us, give suggestions, and keep like the chat and the comment section engaging is always really nice. So if you're still listening, shout out to you.
Yeah, so next week Ian will be back with a discussion on like performance testing in Postman. We have some new features around there, so he'll be talking about API performance. Um, Stay tuned. We don't have a link for it yet, but stay tuned for more info on that. And then, as Debo mentioned at the beginning, we'll have the State of the API 2023 report stream with Pooja on the 17th, the week after next week, 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
And also the Intergalactic. So if you want to see more of Debo and learn about some GraphQL stuff, that'll be a good one to check out. But sharing these in the
Yeah,
chat.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's about it from us. So thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. See you next week. Bye,
Later.
everyone. Peace out.